Hi everyone, my name is Steph. Welcome or welcome back to my channel. Today I'm here with a weekly book steep video where I wrap up the last 7 days worth of reading. I am not drinking tea, I'm drinking water because I need to hydrate. So that's where we are. We're also continuing with the summer to autumn transition of terrible lighting. So I will sort that out before winter hits and we have atrocious lighting. We are here to talk about my reading week from the 4th until the 10th of April. It was the first week of my school holidays. My reading stayed pretty consistent. I read 10 things this week, 2,974 pages. I had a total of 3,193 audio minutes read, but that is the full length of the audiobooks as opposed to the speed that I read them at. So definitely not that much time spent on audiobooks, but the equivalent of audiobook time. I had 3 rereads this week, 1 DNF, phone alarm going off, and 0 books read for projects. So no project books this week. That was interesting. Let's start with the rereads. The first book that I reread was the audiobook of This Kingdom Will Not Kill Me. This is my Blackwell's or my UK hardcover edition. It is very pretty. I don't really need to talk about this because I did wrap it up last week, so it has been a very recent reread. I literally finished the book and started the audiobook as soon as I finished reading this. I will do one more reread before the live show at the start of May, so stay tuned for that, just because I'll need to get all my thoughts together, but that is an adult fantasy book with a romantic subplot. I also reread Diamond Fire by Ilona Andrews. This is the novella. It's 3.5 in the Hidden Legacy series. It is the transition between Nevada's series and Catalina's series. I haven't talked about this in a little while, so brief recap of that. Nevada is getting married to Connor Rogan, and she's basically fired all of her wedding planners, and so Catalina and Arabella decide to take on duties as wedding planners and organisers. And so Catalina is doing a lot of running around at Rogan's mother's place where the wedding is going to take place. A lot of Rogan's family have flown in, and Rogan's mother reveals to Catalina that somebody has stolen a precious family heirloom, and she'd like Catalina to track it down because she doesn't know who from her family would have done it, and it has to be someone from her family. So it's the first time we see Catalina take center stage in terms of investigating a case on her own. She's one of my favorite characters in the entire Hidden Legacy series, so it was really nice to come back to it, and I reread it because the graphic audio released, and it was fabulous as always. I said I had 0 project books. This is a project book. It's also a reread. So I reread Network Effect. It is for a project, and I will have a full video talking about this coming out upon release of Platform Decay. So this is coming. I am making my way through my Murderbot Diaries reread. How did I not remember that? That's okay. We were due for a screw up in this video. On to book reviews. So I read Catch Got Your Tongue by Kelly Reynolds, which is an upcoming release from her. It is the next book in her, oh God, what's the series called? I know this series, the Rose City Roasters series, which follows a baseball team. One thing I will say about these, even though so far, this will not be the case with the next book, but so far the majority of the romances in here have been what you would traditionally expect to be heterosexual couples. This is a very queer normative world, and all of our characters are queer and everyone around them is queer, and it is delightful. Kelly Reynolds is a fabulous writer. This series is no exception. We are following Bella and Bennett. Bella is the sister of one of Bennett's teammates. They end up living next door to each other, so it's a neighbours to lovers situation. They're both attracted to one another, and through a series of moments through the start of the book, they end up in situations where they're helping each other out and spending a lot more time together. There is also deaf representation in the book. Bennett is deaf and is I believe the only deaf player in the baseball league within this world. So there is some discussion around that, but it's not a big deal. It's not a negative thing. The team have made accommodations for him, and is honestly just delightful. If we had organisations just making accommodations for people with disabilities in general in life without making a fuss about it, that would be wonderful. This is why we like to live in book worlds, because book worlds show us what the potential for a really positive society can look like. It's also an age gap romance, but it doesn't really make so much of a difference in this book. I mean, they're both adults. Bella is a virgin in the story though, so be mindful of that, although it's not a big deal, really. It's more just that she hasn't found the person that she wants to sleep with. Also totally valid. And she's a beekeeper. I love stories with beekeepers. It just makes me happy. I can't go anywhere near bees because I'm allergic, but I love the idea of bees and beekeepers and making things from products from bees. I love everything about this series. It is fun, it is light-hearted, it is joyful, and it is queer normative, and all of the side characters are delightful. Then I read the second and third books in the Second Chance Ranch series by Annabeth Albert. So book 2 is Keep You Safe. This is Adler and Grayson's story. So Grayson is the head of the ranch hands on the property from book 1. And Adler is the best friend of Maverick, who is the son who came back to take over the ranch in the first book. And Adler has been through his own things in life. He's had substance abuse issues, he's gotten clean, he's looking for a fresh start, but he's basically burnt his work opportunities, and he loves to get under the skin of Grayson. And Maverick's idea of setting up the ranch as an opportunity for people to come out and to have a go at being a hand and seeing what life is like living on a ranch. Adler is the test subject for that. So he packs up all of his things and he goes and moves into the ranch hand house and tackles any and every job that he is given. Grayson fully expects him to give up and to fail because he's a city boy, but Adler is really, really determined. And along the way, he kind of weasels his way into Grayson's life as well. Why do I keep coming back to Annabeth Albert's books? Because she also does found family really, really well and just creates these worlds where characters feel real and the situations that they face in their relationships also feel real and just authentic. And then I just decided to continue the series because, again, this helps me to wrap up another series of my series to read. And also it was only 3 books, is Need You Close, which is the 3rd book. This is following Carson, who is the brother of Colt, who is the love interest from book 1. Colt is the town sheriff. Carson, his brother, is in the army, and in the 2nd book we knew he had been injured and was being treated for a traumatic brain injury. And so at the start of the book he's finally coming home after a lot of rehab. He still has some difficulty speaking and getting out the words that he wants to say clearly, but he's otherwise very capable. And everyone is hovering and he just hates that they're hovering because he's capable of doing what he needs to do. He's still dealing with the trauma and the grief of basically losing his career because he had a medical discharge. He is set up to work as a hand on the ranch as well as something to do, which is where he crosses paths with Jude. Jude is the town veterinarian. He looks after the big animals, so the horses and things like that. So he's constantly out on at ranches. He's also a military vet. He has some PTSD from his time while he was in the service, and he's the one to connect with Carson to try and treat him with the respect that he deserves as he's recovering, but also, you know, trying to be supportive and suggesting, you know, there's a military vet meeting, come along to it. The people are great. It's really good, even if you don't speak, just to hear what other people's experiences are. And so eventually Carson starts going with Jude, and then they start going for dinner afterwards and actually building this really nice friendship. And Jude is constantly trying to make sure that he is checking himself if he does or says anything that's ableist. And he does find himself doing that with the best of intentions, but he is also then very quick to say, hang on, actually, I understand. That was not my place to say or do that for you. It was well-intentioned, but it was not necessary. And I appreciate that conversation of ableism in a book as well, because it does mean that we're addressing something that is very prevalent in society. And again, a very cozy, very easy read. There is pansexual rep in here as well, which is great. I enjoyed it. I also read Click by Sarah Bailey, which is her most recent release. I had this as a NetGalley arc. This one is a crime story set in Melbourne. We are following a journalist, Ollie, and also a rookie detective, Penn, who are all investigating a series of weird disappearances and murders of women in Melbourne. So the book opens, Ollie is working on, she has an online news platform. She is working on a long form series on domestic violence. Penn has been involved in looking for a missing woman. And then the media gets hold or is sent a photo of a gruesomely murdered woman, which is different. And so suddenly the entire trajectory of everything that they're looking at moves. We also find out that Ollie has just been diagnosed with breast cancer, and Penn is really struggling to fit in at work. She's had some trouble with some of her superiors, not because she's done anything wrong, but just clash of personalities. And so she's still trying to figure out where she fits in. And interestingly enough, these two characters, their paths are constantly crossing, but they're not always interacting. The interactions are quite short. And as time progresses, more women turn up murdered. They can't find the original woman in the photos that were sent to the media. The missing woman turns up, so on and so forth. And they're trying to piece together how this all fits together. And then you have other side characters. You have the people running the police investigation. You have the Premier of the state, who is using this to platform her re-election campaign in terms of she's speaking up quite loudly about violence against women, but there's something else going on as well, and you can just feel there is something happening in the background, but you don't know what it is. And it was really enjoyable. So I had the NetGalley arc. I did actually get the audiobook out from Libby, which also was a great way to listen to it. I really enjoyed it. I do enjoy Sarah Bailey's work. I don't know if I enjoyed this as much as the Gemma Woodstock series, but I did enjoy this because, again, it's always nice to see my city represented in books, even if it is a crime book. All right, and then the last 3 books that I am going to talk about are middle fiction titles. So I read The Crossover by Kwame Alexander, which is a middle fiction verse novel. The audiobook was available on Libby, so I borrowed it out because I have read the second book in the series as a graphic novel, so this time I listened to the audiobook. We're following Josh and Jordan, who are twins. They're very, very good at basketball. Their father is very invested in their future playing career, and the story itself is about the pressure that kids get placed under, what happens when things start to spiral, in particular for Josh. He starts to spiral. He ends up not playing because he ends up injuring his brother. And throughout the course of the book, you're also dealing with the fact that Josh is realizing that his dad has health problems. He's been ignoring, issues with his heart and ends up in hospital, I think having a stroke, and then does later pass away from complications related to his heart condition because he has not been managing it. So Josh is dealing with frustration and anger and resentment and all of those things, while also being centered around his passion for playing basketball and his passion to succeed and to show people just how good he is. Kwame Alexander, great writer. The audiobook for this was really great as well. And then the last 2 books are books that I may have smuggled out of my school library because I've seen them talked about online and I wanted to have a read of them. They're the I Survived graphic novel series based off the books by Lauren Tarshis, and I don't know if they've been adapted by the same person. They have. So both of these have been adapted by Georgia Ball. So these are a series of books told from the perspective of children who survived big events. So this one is Hurricane Katrina in 2005. We're following Barry. He and his family live in New Orleans, and at the start of the story, we know that Barry has been separated from his family, that we flash back to before everything began, and Barry and his family are planning on leaving and going to stay with family in another state, except his sister gets sick and they have to turn around and go home, and so they get stuck in their house with floodwaters rising. And eventually Barry is separated from his family and has to survive on his own until he is rescued and then reunited with his family. Very engaging. The back of the book also features lots of information about the actual true event and everything that happened. And then I also grabbed The Sinking of the Titanic 1912, which is about the sinking of the Titanic. We are following George, who is a young boy who is aboard the Titanic with his sister and his aunt, and they end up being caught up with everything that happens in the Titanic, and it's how they survived. Again, at the end, lots of information about the true event. I probably should have grabbed the other 2 books that were sitting in the library office, but I figured I should just start with 2 just in case I didn't get to all of them, because I also borrowed some Wings of Fire graphic novels that I want to try just because I've got kids who read them. So yes, very interesting series, very engaging, great illustrations, very easy to follow story. I can understand why kids would be very, very interested in these. I know we've got some year 5 and 6 kids who are very, very keen to read these, so I have to review them and return them before the term starts. All right, and then in terms of upcoming TBR, I'm still reading this. You'll be pleased to know that I have at least read another chapter since January. So I'm hopefully going to read another one this morning while I wait to watch the re-entry of the Atmos 2 crew. I also started reading Astronomy Sky Country by Karlie and Krystal de Napoli. So I am going to continue that. I am this far in. I also have The Beginning of Us by Emma Mugglestone to read this week, which is a review title. And other than that, it's going to be Love in the Night. And you guys have seen my thoughts on what I'm planning on reading. So I'm actually going to plan on starting Love in the Night tomorrow, which is Sunday, which is a day early, but I'm excited. I would start today, except I need to read The Beginning of Us for review. So I have to prioritize that. And that is everything from me this week. In the comments, I'd love to know, have you read any of these books? Are you planning on picking any of them up? Feel free to discuss them with me down below, or feel free to share something you've been reading and loving in the last week. And if you just want to let me know that you're here but you don't want to leave a comment, feel free to leave a baseball emoji to let me know that you're here. I hope that wherever you are in the world, you're staying safe and healthy, and I'll see you in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye everyone.